What if Abraham Lincoln, one of America's most iconic presidents, had survived that tragic night at Ford's Theater? Imagine for a moment, the shots fired by John Wilkes Booth missed, and Lincoln went on to complete his vision for a united, reconstructed America. How would that have changed the course of history? Today we're diving into a fascinating what-if scenario to explore how Lincoln's survival could have altered Reconstruction, civil rights, and even America's global legacy. From his dreams for racial equality to his vision of healing the nation, we'll examine each impact that might have been. Plus, stick around until the end, where we'll uncover surprising twists in how history books might have portrayed Lincoln's continued influence. Before we get started, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know in the comments. How do you think Lincoln's survival could have changed the America we know today? Let's get started. To understand what might have changed, let's set the stage. It was April 14, 1865. The Civil War had just ended, with Union forces victorious, and Lincoln was guiding the nation into Reconstruction, a time when America would have to grapple with the reintegration of Southern states and the question of what freedom truly meant for newly emancipated African Americans. However, that night at Ford's Theater, John Wilkes Booth, a Southern sympathizer deeply opposed to Lincoln's policies, shot the president in an attempt to reignite the Confederate cause. Tragically, Lincoln passed the following day, leaving his vision for America unfinished. His death placed his successor, Andrew Johnson, in charge, a leader whose approach to Reconstruction clashed significantly with Lincoln's ideals. But what if that fateful shot missed? Let's imagine an alternate timeline where Lincoln recovered, rose to power once more, and continued to lead with his principles intact. How might his leadership have reshaped America's future? Lincoln's approach to Reconstruction was far more lenient than what came after. He had hoped to reunite the country as swiftly and painlessly as possible. His 10% plan aimed to quickly reintegrate Southern states if just 10% of their voters swore allegiance to the Union and accepted the end of slavery. Compared to Johnson, who later allowed Southern states to pass black codes that restricted the rights of Black Americans, Lincoln was more focused on creating genuine unity and integration. Had Lincoln survived, he likely would have pushed for a smoother, faster path toward reconciliation, possibly limiting the oppressive laws Southern states enacted to undermine black rights. Would Southern resentment have cooled with Lincoln's moderate approach? And would his presence have prevented the rise of groups like the Ku Klux Klan? There's a real possibility that Lincoln's softer stance could have allowed for more peaceful progress and lessened the intense, sometimes violent backlash against Reconstruction efforts. Section 3. A different approach to racial equality. Lincoln's legacy on racial equality is complex. While he originally did not advocate for complete racial integration, his views evolved significantly throughout the Civil War, especially after the Emancipation Proclamation. Before his death, Lincoln had hinted at supporting black suffrage, particularly for veterans who served in the Union Army. This was a radical stance for the time and hinted at a possible direction his policies might take. If Lincoln had survived, it's likely he would have laid groundwork for black rights and citizenship. Could Lincoln have used his influence to pass early civil rights protections, perhaps even laying the foundations for the 14th and 15th Amendments sooner? Without the turmoil of Johnson's presidency, Lincoln might have united more Americans around the idea of basic rights and protections for black citizens, accelerating the fight for racial equality by decades. Section 4. Impact on subsequent presidencies and political landscape. Lincoln's continued leadership could have altered the course of future presidencies. Without the tensions and challenges brought by Johnson's administration, the political landscape might have remained steadier. The struggles and partisan conflicts that Johnson faced set a precedent that delayed Reconstruction progress for years. A surviving Lincoln might have inspired his successors to continue a legacy of unity and equality rather than division and delay. If Lincoln had overseen the beginning of Reconstruction, it's possible that his influence would have carried into the next administration, creating a stronger foundation for civil rights progress. Leaders like Ulysses S. Grant, who became president after Johnson, could have had an even stronger basis to build on for his own efforts to combat discrimination and support Reconstruction. Section 5. How history books and global perceptions might have shifted. Imagine how Lincoln's legacy would appear today if he had seen Reconstruction through. History often lionizes leaders who die in service, especially under tragic circumstances. But surviving such a dramatic event might have solidified Lincoln's status even further. Rather than merely being remembered for his speeches and the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln's legacy could have also encompassed a successful Reconstruction and a stronger, more unified America. Globally, the United States' reputation might have also benefited. As a symbol of democracy and human rights, a stronger Reconstruction could have positioned the U.S. as an early leader in equality and civil rights. Lincoln's survival might have given other nations a model to follow and possibly accelerated the abolition of discriminatory laws in other parts of the world. Outrow with viewer questions and engagement. So that's one version of how history might have unfolded if Abraham Lincoln survived. From accelerated civil rights to a more united nation, it's fascinating to imagine the ripple effects of his survival. What do you think? Would Lincoln have succeeded in creating a more unified country, or would he have faced obstacles similar to those of his successors? Let us know in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to like this video, subscribe if you're new, and answer this. What other historical what-if scenarios would you like us to explore? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.